Good morning, everybody, and thank you very much for your attendance to Smart Marketing. I think we're really in for an exciting a session today with a lot of great information. We're partnering with Strive Young Professionals, which is the committee of the board of directors for the Sault Ste. Marie Chamber of Commerce. And membership there is for those that are 40 years and younger, and for those who have a state of mind that is 40 years and younger. And also a great partnership here with Bell Media and the various outlets that they have to provide marketing expertise and knowledge and transferable knowledge to us as chambers of commerce and chamber members. Thank you to all of those who are members of your Chamber of Commerce. If you're not, we strongly encourage you to reach out to them. This is just a sample of the things that your chamber does to increase business intelligence in our marketplace and really help our small and medium-sized enterprises grow and contribute to the economic benefit of Canada. And also, as we'll just quickly reference here, enable economic reconciliation in the greater context of truth and reconciliation. So with that, I just would like to start with a land acknowledgement that is general, seeing as we come from various parts of this great country, and each of us is respectively within a treaty that is diverse as our country. So we'll begin this event by acknowledging that we're on the meeting on the lands that have been inhabited by Indigenous peoples since time immemorial. We're grateful for the opportunity to meet here, and we thank all generations of people who have taken care of this land for thousands of years. We recognize and deeply appreciate their historic connection to this place. We also recognize the contributions that all Indigenous, Métis, and Inuit peoples have made, both in shaping and strengthening each community represented here, but as well our provinces and our country. This recognition is also clearly connected to our collective commitment to make the promise and the challenge of truth and reconciliation real in our communities. Miigwech, and thank you. So without further ado, I would like to introduce to you Andy Smith from Bell. Andy has done a presentation with us before, and we're also joined by the representatives Brad Westcott and Stephen Dufort. So Andy, if you want to just get right into it and share your screen, we will watch the chat box for the questions and look forward to today's discussion.
Thank you, Rory, and thank you all for joining. Appreciate you all taking some time to take some time with us to talk about some specific things about marketing and technology. I will start off by saying a few real quick things. Myself, Stephen, and Brad at Bell Media, we do not necessarily condone or endorse the use of AI. It's still a very gray space. We will talk a lot about it, but I just want to let you guys know that we don't technically use it from a business perspective, but we are definitely using it on a personal level to help save time and automate things. And we'll definitely touch on how businesses can take advantage of AI specifically in some areas. Now, I do know that the marketing for this presentation uses the word smart. I will also have a disclaimer saying that right now AI is quite dumb. It does a lot of amazing things, but it's not quite as smart as we are yet, thankfully. And we'll dive into that in some detail. So let me start by sharing my screen here. Hoping you guys can see that okay. Awesome. Thank you, Brad. And then real quick, let's look at the agenda. So as I said, we'll start by talking about AI technology, how businesses are using it in some areas. It is a constantly changing space. You're probably going to hear me say that over and over again, but it's true. This particular deck I'm about to show you has changed many, many times. At some point, Brad and I just had to stop because it's constantly being evolved and changed by what's going on in the AI space. So we decided enough. We're going to just focus on what we know up to this point. We're also going to talk, obviously, about some Bell Media digital options. Bell Media has a lot of different digital solutions. We're not going to have time to dive into all of them today, but we will focus on some specific things that we think businesses can take advantage of and help grow their businesses and reach customers, which leads us into the third bullet point, which is identifying customers. It's one of the things you have access to at Bell Media, our data and our content. And these are the two things that we use daily to reach and identify customers. Brad and I will also share some case studies, just give you an idea of what a situation would be like, how we went through it, and what the end result was for two different types of campaigns. We also have some digital trends that we have seen at the beginning of 2023 and have continued. We will continue to see them through 2023. Just give you some extra tools on what we think you might want to know more about to help grow your business. And then if time allows, we'll have some Q&A. So let's get into it. So for those of you not familiar with AI, and I apologize if some of you do, I'll do my best to keep it short. AI, in a nutshell, in its simplest forms, is basically leveraging computer and machines to mimic the problem-solving and decision-making capabilities of humans. I know that sounds ominous, but that's basically how IBM defines AI. And like I said off the top, it's still in its infancy. It's changing and growing and evolving very, very quickly. But it still requires us, human interaction, human input and direction. So a lot of what we're going to talk about today still requires a lot of lifting, but if you're using it correctly, it will actually end up saving you time. Okay, so let's start by focusing on some business categories where AI is making an impact. And by the way, it is making an impact across every board. AI is having an impact everywhere across every business type in some way, in some more than others. But we're going to focus on some of these right now. So mobile commerce, how is AI being used right now, or how is it being affected? In many ways, the design for better mobile apps with less time and resources. You're going to hear me say that regularly too. AI is allowing humans to save time by having the AI do most of the repetitive tasks, the hard work that some humans may not want to do, and that's where AI kicks in. And you're seeing that very much in the mobile space, specifically where there might be chatbots offering instant support, tools for enabling customers to instantly personalize and visualize custom products. If you buy anything online on a mobile device, chances are you've experienced some kind of AI interaction. In the social commerce space, very similarly, AI is being used for cost-effective ways to create blogs, captions, images, and videos. AI is going to affect the content space very. There's a lot happening in the content space, and AI is going to affect it greatly in a bunch of different ways. It's also creating virtual influencers. Chances are you may have come across an influencer that may not even be human, and some of them are actually gaining a lot of traction on social media. And then Gen Z, the generation that is most likely to shop via social media, is interacting and being engaged by AI very directly. And we're going to touch on Gen Z towards the end as well as one of our trends for 2023. In voice commerce, AI is being used to make automated responses a little bit more personable and human-like. If you've ever been on hold at any time, chances are you've been in contact with an AI person on the other end of the phone. That is being used pretty much everywhere. And then some other areas where generative AI is creating or being used to basically to create high quality content, improve personalization. You're going to see a lot of that. Accelerate product design and reduce manual inputs to improve efficiency. So these are some of the main areas where AI is being used regularly to help save time and allow humans to take it to the next level with technology, with marketing across all the boards.
Andy, and we got a question for you here.
Absolutely.
In any of these areas, and I don't know if this is in your space, it may just be general knowledge, a responsibility, or is there actual policy around this? How and when you have to disclose if you're interacting with virtual individual? You say a virtual influencer, it seems to be crossing some pretty crazy barriers.
Yeah, like I said off the top, AI is a very gray space right now. It is very much the Wild West. There are very few regulated rules when it comes to AI right now. And you may be hearing about it in the news a lot. You might be seeing things about copyright. You might be seeing things about who owns what, and when to disclose whether or not you're engaged with any kind of AI. Right now, you're probably, specifically to what you asked, Rory, you're probably going to see it more in publishing. News websites are supposed to be disclosing when they are using AI and creating their content. Not all of them do. And well, we're actually going to touch on that in a couple of slides, but there are no rules. No one, I think, really has to say whether or not they're, being engaged by something that isn't real. That will probably change. Not for us to decide at the moment, but I'm sure that will come down the pipe for sure. It's kind of like, I said this before, how this has changed dramatically. Some of you may or may not remember Napster. AI is this generation's Napster. It's the next big disruptor since Napster. Napster changed the music industry forever. AI, in all its iterations, will change everything forever, and in multiple ways in a much larger space. So let's take it to the next level here. So we talked about some of the areas, the business categories that are being affected by AI. What exactly can we expect to see in those categories? We mentioned chatbots. That's probably one of the most common places where you may have experienced AI. Usually at the bottom right of a website, you'll see a box pop up and ask if you want some help or if you need to converse with someone. All of that is AI driven. And I remember seeing this many, many, many years ago and wondering if it was actually human or not. It didn't take long to realize that it wasn't, because it kept asking the same repetitive questions or answering the same way. But right now, it's almost impossible to tell the difference between an AI generated response and a human one. That's how gray things are. It's very difficult to tell the difference. And I think it's safe to assume if you're on a website and you see a chatbot or that thing at the bottom right of the screen, just assume it's not human, because I can't imagine there's going to be a staff of people waiting for you to ask a question about those sunglasses on that website. Product descriptions. Similar to chatbots, product descriptions are basically everywhere. Not just on websites that sell or have retail products. We're going to touch on that as well in a few slides, but just descriptions in general. It's so much easier for AI to create a dynamic or interesting seeming description of any product, rather than you sitting at your keyboard waiting to come up with the best, 40 lines of text to describe whatever it is you're trying to describe. AI can do that for you so quickly and in many different styles. So you're going to see a lot of that. Personalized product recommendations. This is basically Amazon. If you've ever spent any time on Amazon, those recommendations are all AI based. They're all based on your history, what it thinks you're interested in. None of those descriptions were created by a human. They're all based on data that's being pulled from product information and inventory data. Content creation, I mentioned that a minute ago, huge. Anything or anyone that relies on content creation online is going to be affected by AI. And in fact, most of them are using AI in some space, not just words, not just images, not just video, everything that deals with content creation. Automatic translation, similar to chatbot interactions, the translation knowledge right now is incredible. There used to be a time when you could just go to Google and say, change this into French or change this into whatever language. And then once you put it in front of someone that speaks that language, immediately knows you went to Google. It's becoming very difficult to determine whether or not AI or a human translated it versus AI, because it has so much more knowledge of the languages that it has access to. Data analysis and insights. Basically, it's an incredible tool to analyze any kind of data, where it be numbers, words, images even, it doesn't matter. You can tell AI to review any kind of content and tell it to bring it back to you and translate it in a way that you understand it. Regularly, Brad and I dump PDF files into AI and say, explain this like I was 5. And it helps because it dumbs it down and makes it easier for people to understand very complex things. Touch on that in a couple minutes too. And then finally, product design and development. Imagine if you could have AI create something before you actually had to create something. Doesn't matter if it's a product, a blueprint, or something that you would normally pay for. AI could pre-visit for you and create it ahead of time and allow you to decide whether or not you want to move forward with it. So those are just some examples. There are many more, and it's constantly changing, but these are some of the most common examples of what you can use AI for. So what can you as a business use AI for? There's a lot of different things. We've touched on a lot of that now, but some of this stuff might be out of your reach. You may not be able to do it on your own, but I'm going to give you some very specific examples of how certain businesses are using, in this case, specifically text-based AI, and in this case, ChatGPT. Now, before I move on, are there any other questions, Rory? So we're technically going to a different section now.
Nope, I don't see
Awesome.
anything in the chat,
Okay,
but
cool.
if anybody has the last minute, please just go ahead.
All right.
I dump it into an AI.
Sorry, we have a
Like-
question.
All right, go ahead.
You logged into chat.
No, sorry. And I'm probably taking it right back to, I have no idea, but one of the examples you use is you would dump a PDF.
Yeah.
And get it to translate it, dump it where?
Well, yeah, a bunch of different places. This is where I'm gonna have
Okay.
to step aside and say, like, we don't necessarily have one source that we would do this with. There are many websites that do it, many AI tools that do it. But yeah, you can take a PDF and upload it. I mean, we're talking about ChatGPT right now. There are others like it. For example, Google has released Bard, which is their version of ChatGPT. There are other AI online sources that translate, that can also look at and scan PDFs and then make sense of it for you. I guess, I mean, it sounds weird, but Google it and you'll find some
Okay.
sites, products that do it for you. Yeah.
Like how to get started.
Thanks, yeah.
When in
that's
doubt,
what-
Google it out.
Exactly. So yeah, use AI to find an AI product for you. I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's essentially what it is.
Do you have any websites that you would suggest through your own use at this point?
Stick with what you're hearing about. If I have any recommendations, it's the ones that I would use. So like Brad and I, on a personal level, again, Bell Media doesn't use these internally, technically, but we on a personal level would use ChatGPT to take, we would enter prompts and we would have it give us back what we're looking for. And in a lot of the next 10 slides, I'm going to show you examples of how businesses are using specifically ChatGPT. There are others like it. This is probably the one that's in the news the most. If you've heard of text-based AI, this is the one you've probably heard of. There are others. So again, back to the previous question, if you're interested in finding them, just Google AI text generator, and you'll probably get a list of maybe 5 or 6. And if there's one that jumps out at you because you're familiar with it, start there. Now, I will also say, right now, ChatGPT it is free. It is limited in some capacity, but in most cases, these AI tools do cost money. They require some kind of monthly fee in order to use these products and services. All right, so let's talk about what certain business categories are doing with ChatGPT. So travel is a huge one in the sense that it allows travel agencies and companies that deal with travel to save time by generating itineraries, explaining certain experiences in other parts of the world. Like AI has never been to Greece, but it will write, 5 or 6 lines about what it's like to visit Greece or hang out on the beach. And then you would take that and put that on your website. That's how travel is currently using ChatGPT in the most simplistic forms, and most of them are now doing that. In the legal space, scarily enough, yes, AI is being used to either draft and in some cases decide on legal cases. There have been examples and instances of both. Back to my example of taking a PDF and having AI understand it for you, this is one of those spaces where people are using it regularly. If you've ever looked at any kind of legal document, you start to fade out after the first few lines. AI can scan it for you and make sense of it for you in a matter of seconds. And this is what's being used regularly in the legal space.
We actually had a company that was founded here in Sault Ste. Marie that did exactly that, was to take a legal document and put it into, general English speak and understand.
Exactly.
Really interesting.
Like I said before, I mean, we use the prompt review and summarize and explain as if I was 5 years old. I know that sounds condescending, but it's true. That's the AI will take the information, take all of the technobabble out of it and spit it back to you so that you can, okay, that makes sense. Why wasn't it written like that in the first place? But that's what it's being used for in the legal space. Real estate is also another huge area where AI, or specifically ChatGPT, is being used to create descriptions for listings. And in some cases, you can literally take a photo of the home, have AI look at the photo and spit out a description of it. And you can make it be specific, use charming language, or be conversational in some way. And the AI will then will write it in however you want it. Again, back to the human connection, it'll only do what you tell it to do. So in every case, there is a human telling it what to do. So, and you can mold it and change it however you like. This is a business category that's very, very touchy right now. So if you remember maybe a couple months ago when ChatGPT was on basically every news channel, and it was in every article talking about how students were using ChatGPT to cheat on essays or exams. This one's close to me because my wife is a teacher. She hasn't had to deal with it yet. She teaches kindergarten, although it won't be long before that is an issue there. But it's interesting in those 2 to 3 months how everything has changed completely now. It's no longer people, I guess, scared that students are using ChatGPT to teach. It's now, why aren't teachers using it more often to create class exercises or lesson plans? And they've now fully, in most cases, teachers and educators have fully embraced it and have leaned into ChatGPT to help them, which totally makes sense. Because it actually does a really good job. You tell ChatGPT what it is you're looking for, and it will give you an entire week's, months worth of lesson plans. It's incredibly useful, again, with the right guidance. It can be very powerful. Politics, similar to legal, also very scary, has been used to craft legislation. It was actually used to create a bill in April, not that long ago. Huge surprise in the politics space. But yes, this will also become, I think, a huge thing to look at next year in the States, especially. AI in the political space is going to be something that we'll all need to be aware of. Back to Rory's comment earlier about awareness and whether or not people need to disclose AI, this is where it's going to become very, very specific.
And will it be able to tell the difference between politicians? You know what I'm saying? That gray
It's
area.
already happening. It's already happening. It's being weaponized that way right now. Another very interesting space is health and medicine. Now, this particular one is in here just to kind of prove that it hasn't been adopted very well, because it's one of those spaces that absolutely requires more human involvement than AI. But I can imagine a future where this is going to be a huge space. Eventually, once all of the privacy issues and the medical silos disappear, imagine being able to have access to your medical history wherever you are. It doesn't matter what doctor you have or what hospital you might be in, or if you're on vacation traveling. Your medical information will be available pretty much anywhere at any time, making it easier for you to get the care you're looking for. That's not where we're at right now. It's more like R2-D2 style robots rolling down the hallways in a hospital with a screen of a doctor on it. Not technically AI, more robotics, but that's what we're seeing. And if I'm being completely honest, I don't want an AI anywhere near my next colonoscopy. I'd rather rely on a human being for that one. That's where this is going to go next. Publishing is a huge category that's relying heavily on it. We kind of touched on it a minute ago. Anything that requires words, AI is involved. There's going to be AI in every capacity in publishing. And people are embracing it. My recommendation, if this is your space, use it as a foundation, then humanize it yourself. Don't rely on just what the AI gives you. Add your own personal flair to it, or whatever style your business or whatever you have personally, add that to whatever it is AI gives you. There's only so much it can do. It will never replace how we speak, how we feel, and how we think, but it will give you the basis for something to start with, which is very, very helpful. I use it regularly to get a starting point on something to write. Everyone has writer's block at some point, even to craft an email. Rather than spending 10, 15 minutes coming up with one line for an email, you can have AI help you do that. Tell it what it is you're trying to say, and it'll give you many options, and you can pick the best one, but then add your own human flair to it. And then the 10th business category is marketing. Marketing is a really big and broad space. It's being affected in many different ways. This example is basically kind of in a writing space. An agency used AI to write a 60-second script for a commercial, and it was better than the concept they came up with themselves. So they went with what AI gave them. Now we're seeing right now in the States, there's a writer's strike. Some of it has to do with this. There's also streaming rights involved as well, but AI is a huge part of why the writers in Hollywood are on strike, because they're afraid for their jobs. If a producer thinks they can write a script in 30 seconds using AI, anyone that's livelihood relies on writing script is going to be in a very strange space soon. And that's where this comes in. But like I said earlier, it can only do what you tell it to. Adding some kind of humanity to whatever AI gives you is imperative, because that's what's going to make it different than what the machine tells you. And then real quick, I just wanted to point something out. Each one of those slides had an image. None of those images are real. We created all of those photos in AI. So that's another way people are using AI in business. I mean, stock images, you can do that yourself in AI, and very specifically, rather than having to look for something. And that's the other thing. There was a time when people would rely on using Google Images for an image in a proposal, or if you wanted to send something in an email, the AI can do it for you. Maybe not as quickly as a Google search, but it can be very customized to what it is you're looking for and unique, and never be replicated again. Just to give you an idea of what we've done here. I'll take a moment to pause. I know, Brad, did you want to jump in with anything yet? I've been rambling for the last 20 minutes.
No, that's great, Andy. I think you've covered so many great points here. I mean, certainly with AI, it's constantly evolving, as we've seen over the last few months, almost exponentially, you could say. When it comes to one of my favorite lines, actually, and you kind of touched on it as well, Andy, is that AI right now, like when we look at ChatGPT, it's a doer, not a thinker. We are still providing it with the context, the information that we are giving it. We're giving it the direction, but it's certainly improving our lives in terms of making things more efficient and utilizing our time as best as we can. And same with the visual here of these images. That only takes a few minutes to input what you're looking for. Certainly there's a learning curve to that aspect as well, but putting in the right prompts to get what you want outputted, and then again, saving you time in that regard. So yeah. Great work on this, Andy. That's great.
Thank you. And also to point out just how quickly it's changing. I did a version of this deck the first week of March, and I had 10 completely different images, and they didn't look anywhere near as realistic as these ones. So in less than 2 months, the ability to create almost realistic images changed that much. They kind of looked real. These ones look more real. So again, when you're dealing with image-based AI, just be aware of what we're doing, and feel free to question what you're seeing anywhere, because like I said at the beginning, these lines are being blurred incredibly. So let's Let's now switch gears a little bit and talk about not so much AI. We'll come back to that at the end, but what can you as a business do from a marketing perspective, now knowing what we've just talked about? So here's where Bell Media comes in. If you're not familiar with our brands or products, let me just give you an idea of what Bell Media represents from a brand perspective. This represents all of the English brands that Bell Media has across the country, and you have access to all of them wherever you are. Ads can be delivered to those websites, geo-targeted to whatever region you're in across all of these products and brands. And we have many different types of ads. We'll get into those in a few moments. And then these are also our French brands. So combined, we have access to over 200 plus websites. That also includes whatever Bell Media local products we have or properties we have in your market for radio and or television, the CTV stations in every market. Lots of opportunities to deliver messages and target audiences on whatever platform and however you need to. So let's start looking at some of those products specifically. Display ads are not new. This isn't necessarily revolutionary. A lot of different companies do display ads, but what we do differently is the kind of ad we're delivering are called HTML display ads. I'm just going to run these two at the bottom right to give you an idea what they look like. They look like they're animated, but they're not. They're like little mini websites, the way they're designed, and they're dynamic. They draw attention. The eyeball is drawn to them. These are ads that drive traffic to websites. If that's your measurement of success, this is something to think about. These are very good at creating awareness and driving traffic to sites. And just like everything else I'm going to show you moving forward, can use audience targeting. So not only can we deliver these ads to a geographic area, we can also target the individual that you want to reach the ads to. We'll touch on that in a few minutes as well. Another ad type across our platforms is called the mobile interstitial. Like it says, it's a mobile specific product, so it's exclusively to smaller screens like a phone or a tablet. These are ads that take over the entire screen. If you have, say, for example, the TSN app on any one of these devices, when it loads, the app loads, the ad will take over the entire screen, creating incredible awareness and impact, and will stay up for about 10 seconds, or unless you close it by hitting the X button. And it also displays between sections. So if you're still in the TSN app and you go from, say, the headline sections and you go to the scores or other platform or league section, the ad will also take over the screen. So we have the splash screen and the section screen taking over the ads. Great for creating awareness for events or quick opportunities, great awareness product there. And similar to the interstitials, another mobile exclusive product is the flying carpet. It's easier to show you what it does versus explaining, but let me just run this video to give you an idea what it does. The ad actually just ends up appearing behind the content. Whoops. As you scroll through the article. So if you're reading an article on any of our platforms, the ad can appear behind the content very quickly. All of these ads that I've showed you so far, obviously click through to wherever you need the ads to go. The combination of the flying carpet and the interstitial, an incredible combo for mobile specific ad delivery, if that's who you're trying to reach. And in most cases, our traffic on our sites is over 70% on mobile devices. So don't discount the fact that people are on their devices. We all know they are. Consider reaching mobile specific devices if necessary. Any questions on those yet before we get into the next set of ad types?
Yeah, Andy, with the mobile applications, how fine of targeting can you do with that? Is it just based on area code, or are there other ways to really deep dive into the data and really segment markets out?
Well, it's actually can be scary. We can go right down to within 11 meters of a device. So it's really, really specific. Now, I don't recommend doing that all the time because as you do that, the more specific you are, the smaller your audience gets. And you don't want to get too small because then you can't deliver enough ads and you just won't reach the type of people you're looking for. However, yes, we can on a mobile device target as small as 11 meters.
Now, can you within that, can you also measure like conversions, even though it might be a smaller market? Is there ability to measure those conversions into sales, or is that the actual marketer's responsibility?
Combination of both. So we do have the ability to report on conversion. We can never guarantee conversion. We're in the awareness business, not the
Yeah.
click-through business. But yes, we have the ability to drive and collect data based on what the user did and how they interacted. Actually, I'll throw it to Brad because he's got quite a few examples or has experience with conversions and how we've used them.
Yeah, there's instances whether we do it through the products coming up, but certainly we can utilize conversion pixels. If you have the ability to add a conversion pixel to your website, we do have that ability then to track different types of conversions. So I'll give you a quick example here.
And
We've,
explain what a conversion pixel is too.
Yeah, it's just a little piece of code that goes kind of in the header of the website itself. And it's not a cookie, it's essentially this piece of code. And basically what happens if a user's been exposed to one of our ads and they happen to get to that specific page, it fires off the code and alerts us that they've been exposed to an ad. Therefore we can track that as a conversion. And then it depends on what type of conversion you're looking for. So the quick example would be, we do a lot of hospital home lotteries, so I'm based in Calgary, looking after sort of Western Canada here. And we had conversion pixels on the homepage, the cart page, and the thank you page. And the thank you page is where the transaction has been completed. And we're able to not only see people that had click on the ads, but also a view through conversion. So someone that's been exposed to the ad, didn't click on it, made it to the website, and then made a conversion, whether it's on that homepage, on the cart, or the thank you. And then we're able to give that information back to clients, say, hey, we had over 161 conversions on the thank you page. The average ticket price is about $100, really good conversions overall in terms of providing that information back. But keep in mind that, the client needs to have the ability to place that code on their site, on the specific pages.
Yeah, interesting. I've seen some material also and some success in the professional sports business and selling, seasonal tickets or what have you. And they're able to see what the conversion is, but actually, I guess, code in there too, that it goes back and sends a message out. Hey, we saw that you weren't interested in, purchasing a season's tickets. Here's an extra 10% discount on your next merchandise purchase. Are you seeing that cycle of trying to walk through a sales process to drive conversion?
Yeah, to some degree. I mean, I know some of our other counterparts have used it from a retargeting perspective. So certainly if they made it to a certain point on the website, and if they, hadn't maybe completed the purchase or finished it further, you could then retarget them further with a different set of ads type of thing as well. And certainly it really comes down to the types of conversions that we're after, what we're looking for, working with any of us to determine how we can track that to our best of abilities and provide that information back to you as well. Certainly in some instances, we might be only tracking conversions while a campaign is live, but that doesn't mean a conversion doesn't happen after the fact as well. So we want to take all of those things into consideration too.
And that's actually one of our case studies, Rory. We'll get to that in a minute. Covers exactly what you just asked. All right, so let's get into content, specifically video. Like I said off the top, what you get with Bell Media is access to our first-party data and content, and we have a ton of content. So we have in-stream and out-stream video. I'll describe what the differences between those two in a minute, but with every video placement on our websites, whether it be a news story or video content, whether it be an episode of a show, there's always going to be a break of ads at the beginning, which in some areas they refer to as pre-roll. That would be the in-stream inventory you have access to. None of these ads are skippable. My recommendation is, if this is something you're interested in, keep your ads shorter, because you have the the advantage with digital advertising to be shorter being better versus having, like your standard 30-second spot. Attention spans online are at an all-time low, very, very short. So if you can keep your ad shorter, it will actually perform better for you. It creates a positive user experience for your brand and will then actually be more memorable. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but that's actually what we're seeing. So keep that in mind. And then outstream video is inventory that appears within our written articles. So if you've ever been on a news website and you're reading an article and all of a sudden the article splits open and a video appears, that's what we call outstream video. And what we typically do is have both of those as an option to you, so we can reach your customer or whoever it is you're trying to reach on multiple spaces on our websites. And I'll just give you an example. That's what each of those look like. So on the left, that's our in-stream video, taking up most of the page there. And then on the right, that's the outstream video within the article. Now, the difference between the two, the outstream video, user has to initiate the audio. So it doesn't completely disrupt the user's experience by reading the article. You have to click on the little speaker button, but the in-stream does have audio engaged. So those are our in-stream and outstream placements. We have a lot of those. Like I said, we have a lot of video content, so those ads would appear in front of all of them. But one of the most incredible spaces we have access to, and you as a potential advertiser would have access to, what we call internally the Super Hub. This is basically ctv.ca. This is our online streaming platform where people come to and watch whatever show we have access to on demand. So this is an incredible space to reach pretty much any kind of audience. It's very broad. I have some demographic information I'll show you in a moment, but this is where people are streaming content. And since March of 2020, this audience has grown exponentially because people have chosen to stream more often. It's leveled off a little bit as things kind of go back to normal, but this is one of those spaces where if you're interested in reaching a lot of people very quickly, this is what we would recommend looking at. And similarly to this product, the Super Hub, which is a web-based product, Connected TV is another video option that we have recommended many times. So the main difference between the Super Hub and this, it's the exact same content, virtually the same audience. The difference though is how people consume this content. We rely on them to have a third-party device, like any of those devices you see on the bottom left. So if you have a Google Chromecast connected to your TV and you have the CTV app installed on that, you can watch pretty much any piece of content on the CTV platform through that device. Now, the main difference between the Super Hub and this, these aren't going to get clicks because people aren't, going up to their television, poking on their TV, but it's a great space to create awareness, top funnel type awareness. It's next level television advertising, in my opinion. This is what's growing very quickly. This audience between this and the Super Hub audience, very, very quick growth. And you've probably heard the term cord cutters. This is what people are relying on as cord cutters. They're streaming content when they want, whenever they feel like watching content. And it's a great complement to a TV campaign in the sense that if you do have a traditional television campaign, this works really well alongside it because you're going to be able to reach that same audience whenever they're streaming our content. And then here's an example of when people are watching it and the types of content people are watching within our stream platform. So there's reality-based programming, there's primetime-based programming, some throwback content. Every time I show this slide, a version of this slide, it doesn't matter how often we have it updated, Who's the Boss is always on that list. I don't know why people love Tony Danza so much, but he's constantly on this list. And it's one of the top 10 shows streamed on our platforms. So this gives you an idea of who and what, sorry, actually I'll show you the who, so we haven't gotten there yet. Here's a demographic breakdown of our streaming audience. So the CTV audience tends to lean a little bit more towards female. They tend to have a little bit more money. The TSN audience, no surprisingly, leans towards male. Very similar indexing across the other sides as well. But this gives you a very general snapshot of the kind of audience that's consuming content via streaming on our platforms. Any questions on those before we get to the next section?
So Andy, maybe, or Brad, just a comment. Can you then, we go cycle back just to the beginning of the presentation. Could we take this information and then go into AI or chat or whatever we use and say, I want you to create an ad that is geared to a sports watcher between the ages of 18 and 34 that likes hockey, baseball, and darts.
It's a very specific audience, but yes, you can absolutely do that.
Wow. And then, so just in the creative process then, as marketers, would we go back to our advertiser and say, hey, listen, I've got this potential ad? And would they, how receptive are they on those creators then if you went to chat, create an ad and you sent it to them and said, I want you to use this? And that interaction now between, the human creator and the marketing arm and yourself as an advertiser, how's that dynamic playing out?
We haven't experienced that yet because that's not necessarily the process that we would take either.
Right.
We wouldn't, because we have our own production facility and capabilities within Bell Media as well. So if you have a CTV station in your market, there are producers there. So that's what they're there for. They will then create the content for you. Now, they individually may do what you suggested, Rory, and just go into chat and say, look, I have a client. They're a sporting goods store and they want to sell tennis rackets. They could do that. That's what it's there for. It's there to, help create the foundation of the message and then allow us then to add what we need to it. I will also say, off the top, I said that, the acronym for this particular session is SMART marketing, but I did say that AI is dumb. It's only as smart as the information we give it. So, without putting any info into it, it's quite stupid. So we have to give it what it needs to develop the end result we're looking for. And in many cases, honestly, it can take several iterations and several tries or attempts to get what we're looking for. So in that case, it's just easier to go to a human being and get what you're looking for. Brad, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say we actually had an instance in the West here where a client did come with a script through ChatGPT, and it was good as a starting point. Ultimately, to your point, Andy, it is still dumb from a timing perspective. So you might say, or the script might be a 30-second commercial, but it's not. It was maybe timing out at 45 seconds. So you still need that human person on the creative side to condense it down to the 30 seconds, get the right, the sounds and of course the production attached to it. So it is becoming a part of our world, but it's still a lot that needs to be done to it to make it work properly within our kind of realm.
And I guess that's kind of like you say, Brad, that's not knowing what the cadence is or the intonations of some of the words to drive emphasis, right?
Exactly. And even going back to, one of the original points to utilizing chat to maybe identify the type of audience that you're trying to reach. And then from there, we can then say, okay, based on that, it's more of a female audience, then we can provide the recommendations on our properties of who or what we want to target with that or sort of utilize to sort of reach that specific audience that maybe chat has identified that's niche for your particular customer, if that makes sense.
All right, so let's move on to our GeoMobile product. If anyone's familiar with geofencing, that's what we're going to talk about for the next couple of slides. So geofencing, similar to display ads, is not necessarily new. It's been around for a while, not necessarily unique to us, but what our product does differently is the amount of data or how we use our data to either target an individual. And it's not just reliant on location. So we can target a device by location, but also by behavior, lifestyle, and interest. That taps into the data that we were referring to earlier. So if you want to find sports enthusiasts in the Muskokas, we can do that by targeting a device specifically by where they are, or what they do with that device or where they've been with that device. We can also retroactively target devices up to 2 years in the past. So let's say there was a sports show that we missed out on and you want to reach all of the people that were at that sporting show at a venue. We just need to know the dates and the address for that particular show, and we can now reach all of those devices with ads. So it's an incredibly powerful tool for us to reach a lot of similar minded people at the same time. It's also a very versatile product. It allows us to target in a bunch of different ways. This slide kind of breaks down how we could attack a campaign using our mobile product. So the table on the left are the 5 possible tactics. And this is just a generic look at it. This would be a little bit more specific if, once we've identified the business and who you're trying to reach, these tactics would change. You wouldn't necessarily need to use all 5, but these are the different ways we could target. So the first one would be like by location. Second one could be targeting people based on the competitors. So if you want to conquest your competitors and target customers there, we can absolutely do that. We can also target people with a lookalike audience. So we have our internal data and we can identify an audience, but we can also scale it out and find similar audiences with our data partners. We can also engage similar business goers in the community. Basically, like I said, we can go back in time. We can use postal codes to target if that's data that you have access to. And also targeting local app users. So if you're a restaurant and you want to reach people who have an affinity to having food delivered to them, we can reach them specifically based on, like I said, how they use their device and their behavior. Tons of different ways to use this product alone, even by combining any number of those 5 tactics. And there's a lot of data that goes on in the back end, so there's a lot of reporting available to you. We're relying on our first-party data. And for those of you that don't know what that means is, first-party data is our Bell Media data that nobody else has access to. And we collect it by basically anyone who is a customer for internet, anyone who's a Fibe customer, mobility. All of that information is being anonymized, obviously, for privacy, but it allows us to target based on what they're doing, how they're doing things, and the kind of content that they consume as well. So by doing that, it allows us to build these pre-built segments. You see a snapshot of them here now. All we need to know from any advertiser is, who do you want to reach? It's almost always the first question we ask. Who do you want to target? And we'll figure out how to reach them using any number of those products that we just went through. So the key then is to identify that audience using this data if necessary, and then create the strategy with whatever tactics make most sense. So if you want to reach gamers, people that play video games regularly, we have a segment specifically for that audience. You want to reach people who are interested in travel, we have a segment specifically for that audience as well. We just need to start by identifying what that audience looks like, and then we can go from there. Any questions on that before we get to our case studies?
I might add, Andy, too, we can do a combination of as well. I'm not sure if you mentioned that, but whether it's using one of these pre-built segments, but then also using a historical geolocation as well. So it's the combination of multiple strategies that we can kind of employ to reach specific audiences as well.
Great point. And it kind of covers what I was going to get to next with building a custom audience by using any combination of those as well. So if there isn't a segment that exists, we can make one for you. We have access to over 1,000 different audience segment data sets. We usually only need to rely on a handful of them, but if necessary, we can combine any type of them together to create a very specific customer audience for you. All right, so we do have 2 case studies we're going to go through. I'll start with this particular one. It actually leans into what Rory asked about. So I'm just outside of Ottawa, and we had the opportunity to, we had an advertiser come to us where they were a local sports organization, and they basically just wanted to, sell tickets. So they had a very specific objective. They wanted to drive reach and they wanted to be efficient. And we used our first party data to do it. They also wanted to understand the process and the data what we were collecting and what it meant, and then meet and exceed their KPIs. Their measurement of success in this case was just ticket sales. So we overall delivered 1.5 million impressions over an 8-month period, specifically in the Ottawa and surrounding area. It allowed us to lift their ticket sales by at least 23%. Their video completion rate was 97%, which benchmark is around 80. Video completion rate represents the amount of time of percentage that the video is seen. Not a huge thing for us to not be good at, because our videos are non-skippable. So in most cases, our view through rate, our completion rate, sorry, is very, very high, anywhere between like 92 to 100%. Click-through rate, which is the CTR, is the most commonly referred to metric when advertisers are looking at digital advertising. Click-through rate was 1.3%, which is incredibly high. The national average, depending on who you ask and what product you're looking at, is anywhere between 0.09% and 0.12%. Very, very low. This campaign generated a 1.3% click-through rate. We also had 6.5 million cross devices incremental impressions, which basically means once a device was targeted, multiple devices were targeted in addition to that, with a 1.5 million cross reach incremental reach. We also had connected TV on this campaign, which is one of the products we looked at. Online video is what the OLV stands for. So we ended up having a lower click-through rate for the video, because the connected TV didn't have video. The average worked a little bit lower. And we also had a display campaign, which delivered ads and changed the creative throughout the 8 months as the campaign needed to, as they had different theme nights, different things going on throughout the season. So this is a really great example of how we used many different strategies and tactics to basically accommodate what the advertiser was looking for, and ultimately drove awareness and increased ticket sales, which was their #1 goal. So, in a perfect world, this was a great case study. I'll pass it over to Brad to cover off case study #2.
Sure. Yeah, this was a customer that we had in the BC Interior. Basically, they were looking for amplify their brand visibility through this specific campaign. So what we were trying to do was create awareness to drive reach, efficiency, and engagement. We were wanting to historically target devices at previous festivals or events. So this is a concert event that was happening or is about to happen in the BC Interior, I should specify. So what we were doing, like I said, historically targeting devices at previous festivals or events in the last 2 years. And then we also had an audience segment of concert goers, specifically in the Okanagan with Kamloops and the Shoe Shop region. The idea here is we want to promote ticket sales as well. We delivered over 500,000 impressions over 4 weeks. Average click-through rate between the two strategies that we utilized was 0.33%. We utilized multiple creative sets. A lot of the creative was specific to each artist that happened to be at this music festival. And of course, it was cross-device delivery. So this was served on desktop, mobile, and tablet. So the two strategies we employed were the Bell Media Mobile. So this was the highly targeted campaign where we were targeting, again, those people that were at previous festivals and the concert goers segment. We delivered about 141,000 impressions there, 292 clicks, 0.34% click-through rate for that particular strategy. So that was the highly targeted strategy. Then we did a mass reach strategy. And we utilized one of our products, which is our Bell Media cost per click campaign. And this is where we serve an immense amount of impressions, but the client is only paying for the clicks back to the site. We were targeting specifically the Vancouver Lower Mainland and the Okanagan. Average cost per click on this campaign was about $2.65. We delivered about 367,000 impressions, so great exposure. they only had to pay for the 1,130 clicks back to the website. And it actually had a really high click-through rate of 0.31, which is abnormally high for a CPC campaign. Normally those hover around that 0.1. We're not as concerned about a click-through rate on a CPC campaign, but in this instance, a lot of it driven by those artist-specific images was helping to drive that click-through rate as high as it was. But really successful. They basically, both of these campaigns played an instrumental role in helping the client attain their objective of substantial growth in ticket sales year over year. And this was the first year where they went very digital with their campaign and a further reach in terms of the audience going beyond their specific region. But very pleased with the results they were.
Excellent. Yeah, so let's give you a snapshot of two different types of businesses with very different needs. And if I didn't mention it earlier, every single digital campaign that we build is customized. It basically is unique to every advertiser. Sure, the strategies and tactics may be similar from one to the other, but the needs are always individual and identified based on what you need to have done. So these are great examples of, using different kinds of strategies and tactics, ultimately all, doing the same thing, creating awareness, driving traffic, increasing sales. So I just want to say real quick, thank you guys for sticking with us. We only have another 45 slides to go. So you're doing great. I'm joking, there's only like 5 left. So the next section basically is trends that we have seen so far, since we're already halfway through the year, and what we will expect to see for the rest of the year. And some of these trends will actually continue on into 24. So the first trend that I wanted to share with you is, as a business owner looking to do marketing, we recommend embracing ad-supported video on demand solutions. These are basically, we just talked about some of them earlier, our SuperHub and or connected TV that would fall into ad-supported video on demand solutions. The reason why is that audience continues to grow. It's being adopted very quickly, and the options, the content options, are also growing. There's no shortage of incredible content that we have access to specifically. So if you're interested in reaching a brand new audience in a new space, ad-supported video on demand is definitely the way to go. And I mentioned this earlier on, where we're seeing AI being embraced, and Generation Z is the fastest growing cohort on the planet right now. It actually outnumbers the boomers. These are anyone right now who are currently aged between 10 and 25. I currently have 2 of them in my house. Very interesting people to communicate with. They don't care about anything other than content at this point. So this is another reason why digital video is huge with this particular cohort. Now, they will also be the largest working generation on the planet by 2025. There will be more Gen Zs working, earning a paycheck by 2025 than any other generation currently on the planet. And they have very different needs as well. We can dive into Gen Z another time. I did an entire presentation specifically on this generation, their needs, what they do and where they are. Just know that they are the next audience that you will need to be reaching. And that leads me to the last slide about creative. When crafting your messaging for your ads, regardless of what platform or who you end up going with for your marketing, it's very important to be informative, especially now. And we kind of touched on the whole gray area of AI and how, potentially misinformation is going to be prevalent. And in that space, it will be so refreshing for advertisers to just be genuine and informative and educate potential customers on what it is you do. That is one of the most important things Gen Z is looking for in their advertising. They don't know a world before the internet. They assume advertising has existed the way it does now forever. So if you want to reach any kind of audience, especially Gen Z, our recommendations are, be informative, be genuine. They tend to like humor. All people, I think, like funny ads to some degree. But these bullet points are just recommendations based on what we've seen work best, but also what data has shown works best in advertising and the kind of messaging you might be crafting. Be authentic, be genuine, tell your specific story. Don't waste 30 seconds telling someone else's story, your competitor's story, tell yours. Let people know what you guys are doing. Focus on products and benefits and strive to make a relevant and emotional connection with your listeners, viewers, or customers. That will always win over logic every single time. And with that, we're almost done. So that pretty much wraps up the presentation. Again, thank you guys so much for being here. We still have time for Q&A if anyone has any questions they haven't come up with while we were chatting. But that pretty much sums it up.
Well, Andy, Brad, thank you so much. I guess probably one of the questions that comes into many businesses' minds is, the how much question, and how much do I spend and how often do I spend it? And obviously we know a lot of these things are customized, but just any thoughts around budgeting and thinking about marketing spend?
Yeah, it's probably one of the most difficult questions to answer, especially in this particular forum, because I mean we have 30 plus people here, and all their needs are going to be different. I guess the best way I can describe it is, and I'm sure many of the people are going to understand this and agree, I wouldn't consider whatever marketing decision you make, I wouldn't consider it an expense, consider it an investment. So if it's $2,000, if it's $5,000 or $10,000 a month, the investment you put towards your marketing has to work in some way. If it's impressions delivered, if it's creating awareness, if it's lead generation, all of those things we need to determine at the very beginning of whatever conversation we might have, so that we can then build the solution that makes the most sense for you. So I'm not going to give you a number specifically. I gave you some ranges that could, do some things, but going into it, assume it's an investment rather than expense.
No, absolutely, I agree with you. And we looked at the title of this session today around smart marketing, and I know you kind of joked at me for throwing in the acronym around SMART being specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and time bound. And I think those are things that really keep in mind when you're looking at how you want to budget a marketing spend. And when we look at this and we talk about how targeted you actually can become, and you have to think about how that return on investment gets reflected by utilizing a lot of that targeting, right? So you might only be hitting 10 customers, but if your conversion's 8 of them, that's a good result, as opposed to targeting 100 customers and getting 8 conversions, right? Because the budgeting and the messaging is going to be very different.
Agreed.
Hi, it's Penny Perrier speaking. Am I coming through?
Absolutely.
Hi, Penny.
Okay. Actually, I'd really like to thank you personally myself, Brad and Andy. It was really interesting. I found some new things I wasn't aware were quite possible. And I really enjoyed your presentation. It was
Thank you,
excellent.
Penny. Appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, Brad and I do this every single day, and sometimes multiple times a day. Maybe not specifically this presentation, but this is what we do. And it's always great to have a forum where we can get a lot of people together and kind of let them know what we're capable of doing. But if anything, we hope we enlightened you in some way, whether it be AI related or what Bell Media can do, and look forward to the future as what you can do as either business owners or agencies that represent them.
I think one of the, sorry?
No, go ahead, Penny.
One of the things that really caught me and caught my attention was the fact that you did emphasize that, the ads and any marketing that is done is really only going to be as good as the person at the top, like the business owner that provided the information correctly. I thought that was a good thing to point out.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And I think too, I was just going to comment whether or not, just on this session, whether or not Bell is part of your marketing mix or not, it raises some great points that you need to ask your advertisers who you're engaging and trusting with your budget, right? So, there's I think some great content here that people can use as they start to think about marketing. I just want to also just, point out Stephen Dufour is our local CTV rep, and also Stephen is a Chamber Award-winning customer service individual recipient. So, you're in good hands if you have some questions, and we can connect you with Stephen as well, a great Chamber member. So the content here, again, as said, is going to be made available to everybody who has registered. We will eventually put it on SSM's COC TV. And feel free, if you do receive this, feel free to share, because it is business intelligence, and the smarter businesses we have in the marketplace, the better we do as a business community. Any other questions, comments?
I have a question for everyone here, if you're interested in answering. Does anyone on this call currently use any kind of AI technology? See some
My
nod.
wife always
mostly
tells me
she-
I'm full of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, I think we all do. Yeah, so again, just to repeat, I know we started by talking a lot about AI. My experience is very, I wouldn't say limited. I mean, we use it quite a bit, but it's nowhere near, the I guess the companies that create the AI technology. Brad and I have just been playing with this for about 4 or 5 months, I guess since November, really. Oh, I guess it's longer than 4 or 5 months, but we're just literally scratching the surface on this. It will continue to change. If you leave with anything beyond the information we shared about Bell Media, be curious about anything related to AI. Be very curious. Maybe not so much skeptical, but be very curious. Ask, is this real? And then how can it benefit you guys as either business owners or agencies or however it can fall into your workflow? Be curious and always ask questions.
I see Michael in here. You said we use vehicle descriptions. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your business and how that relates to it.
Totally makes sense.
Yeah, so we use vehicle descriptions. We just started using them this month, actually. I guess actually in May, technically. And our biggest thing working at a Ford dealership was finding all the information for posting on Kijiji or anything like that. It was a lot of tedious work to try to write, especially let's say if we're selling a pre-owned vehicle that's a Nissan instead of a Ford, where I don't know that info very well. We started using AI. For the most part, it's been pretty accurate. There has been a couple times where I'm like, no, that's wrong. So I do have to correct things every so often. So you can't just assume that it's going to get it bang on. You still have to monitor it, but so far so good.
Yeah, it's a great point. And ChatGPT and others like it, as good as they are at spitting back some information, they tend to do something they refer to as hallucinations. They make stuff up. So that's another reason why we need to humanize the information that it spits back. So like Michael said, you could ask it to tell you, give me a description of a very specific car, year, make, color, whatever, and it'll write something very unique, but it might inject something that's wrong about that particular make or model. And this could apply to pretty much anything. So don't, like I said before, be curious and, double check your work. And it's, as I'm saying it, it sounds like, well, now it's just adding more time to using this stuff. As you learn how to use it or use it more often, it will actually save more time. Just be aware that that's going to happen.
Yeah, I have one example of a time where it was a mistake. So we were using AI to make social media posts, and it said something like explore the world or explore something in your Jeep. And then it was a picture of a Ford Explorer and find your Ford Explorer at Highland Ford. So the fact it said Jeep in the post. I was like, what? No, no. So I had to delete that. So there are a couple bugs, but I'm sure it's going to get better and better.
I think it's important to note too, that what you put into it initially, whatever it gives you back, reprompt it if it's not right. Keep asking it or specifying or expand upon or condense further, or take what you just gave me and condense it down to 50 words or whatever you need to do. So you never, I think it's rare you get it on the first go. You kind of start with something, unless you start really getting really good at the prompting aspect, but you give it something and then feed it more to refine it even further, and all of the variations you can have. So you could even start with something, feed it in and say, okay, this is what I've started with. Give me 5 variations based on this, but maybe serious tone, funny tone, sarcastic tone, whatever you need it to be. That's the beauty of it's the reprompting that really gets the really good results from it.
Question for you. Are there currently any AI plugins that you can use on WordPress that would sort of act like a ChatGPT?
I just saw, and I can't remember the name of the company that owns WordPress. They just released exactly what you're asking. So I believe it's built into the WordPress system. So if you have a WordPress website, you can just start putting in, fill in this with whatever it is you're looking for. It is an additional charge, so you have to pay, like, I don't know if it's like $10 a month or something, but yes, I think they just released that maybe a week or two ago.
Okay, interesting. Thank you.
Yeah. And like I said at the beginning, there's many versions of these out there, some better than others, but this is going to be constant. We're going to see more products and services released week after week based on AI. It's all data and it's all sitting, waiting to be accessed. It just takes someone to figure out how do we connect these two and then give it to a machine to figure out the rest. So pretty much there's a plugin for everything. And if not today, certainly very soon, there will be a plugin for everything.
Awesome. Thank you.
And even on that note, with ChatGPT, as Annie mentioned earlier, you've got the free version, but with the paid version, you have plugins, access to different types of plugins, and one of the cool plugins that is available there is you could give it a YouTube URL. Maybe it's a 20-minute video, maybe it's an hour long, and you can ask it to summarize that video for you in text form. So you don't necessarily have to watch the video. You can get that summary pretty quickly. But again, that's only through the paid version, only through the plugin. They're constantly adding. I mean, I think that's updated 2 or 3 times in the last little while. It's going to be, all of these are updating very often. So it's certainly evolving I would almost say at an exponential rate for sure.
Not that I wasn't paying attention to Brad, I usually tune out when he speaks, but to Catherine's question, it's Jetpack, the plugin you're looking for. So look up Jetpack WordPress and you'll find the plugin you're looking for.
Thank you.
Yep.
And
And
someone
Nora,
just brought up a very good point that the add-on fees are not necessarily Canadian, they're probably American.
True. Usually when you go to any of these websites, whatever monthly subscription fee that they're charging, they're usually in US dollars.
Right.
So that's it. Just want to say thanks, guys. I do appreciate you taking the time. I know we went through lunch and everything. So everyone's time is valuable. So I really, really do appreciate you guys tuning in today.
That's great. And again, thank you very much. Thank you, Brad. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Stephen, for joining us. And, we will make the registration list available to these folks, just so they know who you are. If there's any questions that you want to follow up with, as I see, Andy posted his information. If you need to get connected with Stephen, we can provide that. And if you have any inquiries, certainly touch base with your local Chamber of Commerce. And to all of you, have a great week. Great, very much appreciated. Thank you so much for joining us.